Dear friends and fans, welcome to the second episode of the Customer Experience Show. Whether you're an entrepreneur, a solopreneur, a department store, a small business owner, or a customer experience enthusiast, this show is made specifically for you. In these mini interview sessions, we are talking with the world's greatest minds, and we get to pick their brains for 20 minutes. Our sole aim is to bring you practical ideas you can listen to today and start implementing from tomorrow. Creating unique and unforgettable experiences is the key to creating a differentiated and sustainable business, and this is also another one of our aims. In this second part of the interview, our Head of Business Development, Sofia Shilimitri, will be selecting questions from the audience, so you can drop your questions in the Zoom chat if you're watching us from Zoom, or in the comment section if you're watching us live from LinkedIn, Facebook, or YouTube. And Sofia will select the questions. We have two parts. 10 minutes we're interviewing Bob, and the other 10 minutes is your questions. Let me get to Bob. Our today's guest has set up project management and leadership programs on 3 continents. Bob currently serves as the Director of Intelligent Disobedience Leadership in Australia. His company focuses on improving the quality and quantity of business outcomes by sharing novel leadership techniques using approaches deployed to train dogs. We want to hear more about that in a while. I had the pleasure to see Bob in action when I devoured his course on LinkedIn Learning. And as soon as I watched it, I said, I have to have this guy on our show. Not only because I consider you, Bob, knowledgeable and witty, but also because I consider you very genuine, and above all, I consider you funny when delivering and driving your message through to your audience. Bob, welcome to the Customer Experience Show.
Thank you, Michael. I really appreciate it. I'm honored to be part of this.
It's a pleasure. Before we start, would you like to fill in the gaps from where I left and tell us a few words about yourself, please?
Sure. I try to present myself as both a left brain and right brained individual. I have a degree in mathematics, so there's a bit of left brain, but I think the approach that we need to take to leadership and even the concept of intelligent disobedience, which we're going to talk about, is to come from a place of compassion. That's compassion for the business mission, compassion for our people and our customers, compassion for the capabilities that we need to have to run our business or give them to others, and compassion for ourselves as leaders. Self-care allows us to do those other things. And I think the nature of intelligent disobedience and the discussion that we have today, I hope centers around and gives people some ideas about that.
Excellent. I watched your course, and after seeing you talk about service dogs, how they serve their masters, I got very curious. I love the example that you shared. Can you please share with us why is it so special about having service dogs training and how that's all these linked together with leadership?
Sure. So a seeing eye dog spends its first 12 to 18 months learning to obey, understanding the rules, understanding what it's supposed to do, and basically obeying its master. But what's special about the seeing eye dog is they spend the next 12 to 18 months being taught when not to obey. And if it's not supposed to obey, for instance, its master's asked us to ask the dog to take it across the street, and it sees an electric car coming, so its master can't hear it. It needs to disobey. So it's when and how that disobedience comes about. Thus the phrase intelligent disobedience. In the business world, we often are working on the basis of having a set of business processes. Good business processes work quite well and generate the outcomes we want them to generate, let's say 98% of the time. But what do we do with the other 2? What if that process is not going to generate the outcome that we all want it to do or want it to create? That's the whole idea of intelligent disobedience. When and how we might break the rules, bend the rules, change the rules in such a way to create the outcomes that we need to create without breaking those rules that we shouldn't break, for instance, if they're tied to local laws and or severely against the local custom.
But what happens if someone gets punished for being intelligent disobedient and gets fired? Will that wrap off into the culture? Will others be intelligent disobedient? And what is your experience?
Yeah, certainly that has a big factor and something you need to think of. Usually the concept of intelligent disobedience would make up for that. I mean, someone who genuinely trying to create the outcome that those processes were supposed to create, but for some reason that process is going to fail. If they unless they really, really have done something completely ignorant of the law, I don't see many people get fired for that, because people see that somebody's doing it with positive intent, with the compassion, which means to suffer with. They're willing to take a risk to get that outcome by breaking the rules when they understand those rules aren't going to generate the outcome the rules are actually designed to generate. So I don't see it that often. And I haven't heard many stories, but it does happen on occasion. But normally I could question the intelligent bit of intelligent disobedience in those circumstances.
So let's get to the other side of the coin. What are the benefits you have seen across 3 continents? You work with multiple companies, big ones, small ones. What are the benefits of applying intelligent disobedience?
So first of all, intelligent disobedience is for the benefit of a business and its customers. More often than not, I will see intelligent disobedience in the form of providing an appropriate service to a customer where the rules don't support that. I can tell you a genuine story. I walked into a bank back in the United States when I was selling one of the businesses that I developed and sold. And it was an unusual transaction, didn't involve any weapons or anything. It wasn't that unusual, right? I wasn't robbing the bank, but it was an unusually structured transaction. And I ended up in the office of a customer support manager at this branch who'd been there for 15 years and had not 1, not 2, but 5 customer service awards. When I explained what it is that I was trying to do, she said, yes, understand that. That's in your best interest. That's in the bank's best interest. She spent 2 hours trying to find a process that ultimately created the outcome. Eventually, she just gave up and went to the branch manager of the bank who had just walked in. And he said, oh, there's no process for that. Hang on. And then he kind of combined some things. And in 20 minutes, I had the transaction done after spending 2 hours with this customer support person who did not have permission to engage in intelligent disobedience. She had to follow the process. What did it cost the bank? 2.5 hours of this very valuable person's time, the patience of a very significant customer, and ultimately then the time of the branch manager, which could have been avoided if that branch manager gave people permission to engage in intelligent disobedience.
And you're right. And you were significant because you just sold your business. So you walked in with intent. And she even realized that you were right, they were right, and it was a win-win.
Exactly. If she had the ability to say, look, I can take something from this process, something from that process, put it together and serve this, I would have been in and out of there in 20 minutes. Happy customer, efficient, effective. That's just one example. This is all about creating the outcome that is supposed to be supported. And in this case, it didn't happen until we got to a person that had the permission, if you will, to engage in intelligent disobedience and modify and combine these processes.
If you answer the next question very succinctly, would you say, is it the organization's fault? Is it the bank's fault? Or is that the individual's fault? Or is that a combination?
Yes, that's my answer to that question. It's normally both, sometimes culturally, but look, intelligent disobedience in one scenario is different than in another. If right now, where there's a whole bunch of people and all over the world doing pharmaceutical testing to test a vaccine, there's rigor to that process. There should be rigor to that process. Intelligent disobedience applied to taking shortcuts in that process means people could die, not intelligent disobedience. Right? Somebody else that's working at Google that puts forth a case that says, hey, I think we should change our search algorithm. They can change it for 2 hours, see what happens, and then change return it to its further state. So intelligent disobedience in one context is very different than in another, right? It's all based on positive intent, focusing on business and business outcomes and not personal outcomes. Right? That's a definition that I want to make very, very clear, right? Although you may get a personal kudos and you may get rewarded if you engage in intelligent disobedience and succeed, it should be about the business and the customers and creating that better outcome that the rules and the processes and the standard approach aren't going to take you to.
I understand. Very clear. And I love the examples that you've given with the vaccines and Google. Excellent. You just answered my next question, which was, do you think service agents, since we have a show on customer care, can get better results by implementing intelligent disobedience? But you just answered it with some amazing examples. So let's go to our last question of the day, and then we open it up for our audience.
Sure.
In the post-COVID era, what practical advice can you give to the leaders of companies, irrespective of where they are in the hierarchy, who have seen their income and sales negatively affected by this crisis?
Sure. I mean, I've been working with leaders around the world and do a lot of coaching and mentoring and workshops on intelligent disobedience. And this question is starting to surface, obviously, more and more. Really, I want to talk about those 4 components of compassion, and companionship is, I'm working with a group that calls it companionship, which is compassion-based leadership versus just leading with compassion. So it's that mission, it's the capability of people and the customers, it's the people within your business, and it's self-care. Those 4 things in balance are actually more important to keep in balance when things are going awry.
Can you give us an example for each one so we can understand it more?
Sure. So I'm going to make decisions that are in the best interest of the mission of my business. All right. So I may make an investment in something, or I may cut some other costs so I can focus on customer care. Right. But in doing so, I want to do it in balance with, does that have an impact on the people in my business? So I want to be compassionate for the people in my business. They're going through stressors as well, right, through this situation, right? And I am very, very tuned to the fact that some businesses are not in a position, for instance, they may have to retrench some people, lay them off for a period of time, hopefully to be able to hire them back. I understand that may be the only option, but there are other businesses I see doing that when that's an option that they don't necessarily have to be taking, because they're focused on the mission and not focused on the people that are ultimately going to deliver that mission, right? They're actually reducing one of the other things that I just talked about, and that's their organizational capability, right? If they don't have those people, or if they're retrenching people, the other people that they keep in the business are going to have to question the loyalty of that business to them. So that's going to make them hesitant. You ultimately risk the possibility of reducing their dedication. And then at the same time, self-care, doing the things that the leader does, whether it's just going for a walk, spending time with family, whatever, making sure that they have a balanced and rested approach to making the decisions that they're going to have to make tomorrow. And I mean that literally tomorrow, as well as, in the future. So it's keeping those 4 things in balance. I see a number of leaders that are going to protecting the mission of their business and neglecting the other 3, particularly their self-care. If you're not rested, if you're not balanced, making good decisions becomes very, very difficult. And I would question whether that's always happening, because you have a tendency to be much more reactive and much less creative in the way that you make decisions.
And if we think like a family, I think we can have all 4 together. We have the same mission, driving in the same car. No one is going to get out of that car, irrespective of whether it's a COVID era or not. And at the end of the day, we're going to care about our people, and everyone is allowed to say their opinion, whether we adapt it or not. So at the end of the day, you are asking us to become a close-knit family and care for our people as much as we care for our mission and our profits.
And I talked about this somewhat in the courses you talked about on LinkedIn Learning, where I talk about allowing people to be authentic, which is, sharing their opinions, being able to bring their strengths to the table and allowing them to do that, even though they may go about doing something differently than you would, right? And certainly with COVID, we're all bringing different things to the table. A lot of it really boils down to being very purposeful about what you want to stop doing, what you want to start doing, and what you may want to change about this. People talk about, the new normal after COVID. It's time to create your own new normal, not let others create that for you.
Time to create our new normal. Sophia has showed up in the screen, so we might be running out of time. I'm just want to tell everyone that
exactly.
You should read Bob's book or buy into his course. It's an amazing course. Both Sophia and myself have devoured the course, and one lucky winner will be winning one of Bob's books. He's going to autograph it and send it from Australia.
I've got right here
all the way. So Sophia, let us know what's happening next and how much time we've got.
Yes, so we have 5 minutes left for our broadcast. I just want to let people know, if you want to win Bob's book, please comment on this live stream. Please, of course, those who signed up for the Zoom link, they are also taking part. And we will be taking account all the reactions and comments until Wednesday morning as usual. Okay, so we have 5 minutes left. We have a very interesting question from Joanna saying that how should we handle times when we have to disobey our managers, especially when our managers appear to be maybe arrogant, and how do we handle such situations as employees?
So that's a really, really good question. First of all, make sure you're doing something in the interest of the business and not out of frustration to sort of retaliate to the manager's behavior. That's the first thing that I want to make sure that you do. I get this question a lot when it comes to something ethical. Someone says, you know, my manager is asking me to do something that I think is unethical, right? So that's really a time to disobey. Amongst anything else, you want to be able to look yourself in the mirror and say that you did the right thing. I would make sure I understood, if there's a third person that intervenes, someone in HR or something like that, that you have the rationale very clearly stated for yourself so you could share it with somebody as to why you disobeyed your manager. What is the context? What is the outcome? What risks might that create? And what outcomes that you were afraid would happen if you didn't do it? And if you're clear with that, and if you have an opportunity to share that with somebody else to make sure it's clear to someone, that's fantastic. I would suggest you do it, but sometimes you might not have that opportunity. So I think it's be very, very focused on, again, is it about a business outcome? It's not about a personal thing, and you're not doing this for retaliation, and that you make sure you have a very, very logically built tight story as to why you thought that was appropriate.
Thank you, Bob.
That's amazing. Thank you. One last question, because I see we are running out of time. I had a question coming from me before the seminar from a person who couldn't attend. And she was asking me, okay, I work in a bank. The environment is very regulated. We are taught to follow the book. And I have seen sometimes that we could serve our clients better if we could do things differently. Have you encountered such situations in your work? And how do you suggest we go about changing the way we have always been doing?
Okay, that also is a very good question. Thank you. Let me say this. There are intelligent disobedience sometimes means you follow the rules, even though the outcome isn't going to be ideal, because it is regulated. And I talked about the whole development of a vaccine earlier. And a bank being a regulatory environment, you have similar sorts of things where you have to go through a certain approach. However, part of intelligent disobedience is understanding whether the process to create an outcome is regulated or just the outcome is regulated. So for instance, you have to create a report with, you know, X and such data on it and where money went, and that's a different thing, right? And I use this sort of tongue in cheek. I say you could use 3 PhDs or 87 hamsters to create that report. Doesn't matter as long as the data on the report is accurate. Often we mistake the process and the outcome being regulated when it's only the outcome that's regulated. So you can engage in intelligent disobedience to make more efficient approaches or change the process as long as the outcome has integrity. So the first thing I talk about when I run into people that are in a highly regulated industry, banking being one of them, is to say, are you absolutely certain that the process to create that outcome or that output and the output are both regulated? It is surprising the number of times that people will find, doesn't matter what the process is. People have said you need to follow the process because this is a regulated output, and they make the mistake of thinking the process is regulated as well.
Great answer.
So that's the first place I go.
Great.
That's
Sofia.
amazing. Thank you very much. We are at the 20-minute mark, so we are running out of time, but thank you very much, Bob.
We ran out of time. So
It is my pleasure.
Bob,
Thank you once again for letting me be. Thank you for letting me be part of this.
The pleasure. Can we send you the questions so you can answer them? I mean, we have more questions coming up.
Sure, absolutely. be
Yeah.
glad to do so. Please do so.
Dear friends and fans, thank you very much. I would like to thank you first and foremost for turning up so early in the morning. For those of you who are at Eastern European time, I would like to thank Bob for his immaculate performance once again, and Sophia and Maria, who's on the other line setting up everything for us. And we will be back with another excellent show in 1 month's time. Thank you very much, and take good care, and talk soon.
Bye, everybody. Thank you.
Bye.